The Galactic Council's emergency beacon pulsed through the void, its quantum frequencies carrying a message no one had expected to send. High Chancellor Zenaval watched the transmission stream from her crystalline chamber aboard the Harmony Spire station, her bioluminescent markings flickering with concern. The swarm was coming, and for the first time in 10,000 years of peaceful expansion, the Council faced extinction. "The analysis is complete, High Chancellor," announced First Secretary Ixel, his translucent form shimmering as he projected the latest data. "The swarm has consumed 3 outer rim systems in the past solar cycle. Their resource conversion rate exceeds our worst projections." Zenaval's tendrils coiled tightly around her control interface. The swarm, a mindless, self-replicating army of machines left behind by some long-dead civilization, devoured everything in its path to fuel its endless expansion. The Council's defensive technologies, designed for scientific exploration and environmental preservation, proved useless against this ancient threat. "What of the forbidden signal?" she asked, her voice carrying harmonics of both hope and fear. Ixel's markings pulsed red, their species' expression of extreme caution. "We've confirmed its origin. The signal comes from the quarantine system we've monitored for the past millennium. The species calls itself human." The word hung in the chamber like a gravitational anomaly. Every council member knew of Earth, the Death World, a planet so hostile that it should have been impossible for intelligent life to evolve there. Crushing gravity, extreme temperature variations, aggressive microorganisms, and constant tectonic activity made it a nightmare by galactic standards. Yet life had not only survived there, it had thrived. Humans had emerged from this crucible of evolution as something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that turned adversity into advantage. "Show me," Zenaval commanded. The chamber's holographic field sparked to life, displaying images that made several council members recoil. Humans lifting massive weights in gravity that would crush most species. Human vessels diving into gas giant atmospheres for mineral extraction. Human soldiers training in environmental conditions that would kill any council species instantly. Their military capabilities, Zenaval inquired. "Beyond our comprehension," Ixel admitted. "While we focused on defensive shields and evasion systems, they developed weapons that harness the very forces that shape their world. Their ships are built to withstand conditions that would tear our vessels apart. Their troops can fight in environments we consider uninhabitable." A new projection appeared. Tactical simulations comparing swarm capabilities to human military potential. The results sent ripples of hope through the chamber. "They're barbaric," protested Council Member Vex, their crystalline form vibrating with disapproval. "Their history is filled with conflict. They've nearly destroyed their own world multiple times." "Precisely." Zenaval's voice carried the weight of certainty. "They understand destruction in ways we never could. They've faced extinction and survived. They've turned their death world into a cradle of civilization. And now," she paused, her markings glowing with determination, "they might be our only hope." The emergency beacon's frequency shifted, now targeting a single point in space, Earth. The message was simple, crafted to appeal to the very nature that made humans unique. "To the people of Earth, the galaxy needs warriors. We need Deathworlders." In the depths of No-Raid's Cheyenne Mountain complex, General Sarah Chen stared at the alien transmission with a mix of awe and grim satisfaction. Humanity had waited centuries for first contact, preparing for both peace and war. Now, facing a threat that terrified even advanced alien civilizations, they would show the galaxy why evolution on a death world had its advantages. "Alert the Joint Chiefs," she ordered, a slight smile playing at her lips. "Tell them Operation Prometheus is a go. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." As alarm klaxons began to sound in military bases across Earth, the swarm continued its relentless advance, unaware that it was about to encounter something it had never faced before, a species that called a death world home. and had learned to thrive in conditions that would destroy most life forms in the galaxy. The Deathworlders were coming, and they were bringing with them everything that made Earth such a terrible crucible of evolution. The galaxy was about to learn why humanity's nightmare world had created the perfect warriors for this moment. The orbital shipyards above Mars blazed with activity, massive construction drones swarming around the assembled fleet like mechanical fireflies. Admiral James Connor stood at the viewport of Mars Command, his weathered face illuminated by the red planet's glow. Below him, humanity's answer to the galaxy's plea took shape. "Final systems check on the UES Titan complete," reported Captain Maya Rodriguez, her holographic form flickering beside him. "All 15 dreadnoughts are combat ready. The Graviton Lance arrays exceeded all stress tests." Connor nodded, his eyes fixed on the flagship of humanity's first interstellar strike force. The Titan-class dreadnoughts were monuments to human engineering, vessels that could withstand forces that would tear most alien ships apart. Their hulls, forged in the crushing depths of Venus's atmosphere, laughed at the vacuum of space. "What's the status on the Chimera squadrons?" he asked, referring to the newest addition to Earth's arsenal. Maya's hologram pulled up combat data. "The adaptive armor systems are performing beyond expectations. The swarm won't know what hit them. These ships don't just withstand extreme conditions, they thrive in them." The Chimera-class strike craft represented everything that made humanity unique in the galaxy. While other species built ships to avoid dangerous conditions, humans had designed vessels that turned those very hazards into weapons. The chimeras could dive into gas giants, skim the surface of stars, and emerge unscathed, all while delivering payloads that harnessed these fundamental forces. "Message from Ground Command," Maya announced. "The 1st Terran Marine Division has completed high-gravity combat drills. Medical reports confirm all troops are adapting to the new enhancement protocols." Connor allowed himself a grim smile. The Marines had spent months training under crushing gravitational forces, their bodies enhanced with the latest biotechnology. What seemed like torture to most species was just another day for soldiers born on humanity's death world. In the depths of the Titan, Master Sergeant Sarah Chen led her squad through final equipment checks. Their powered armor, designed to operate in environments that would kill unprotected humans, made them look more like walking tanks than soldiers. "Remember," she addressed her troops, "what's harsh for us is lethal for them. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for species that never had to evolve under the conditions that made us strong." The squad's weapons specialist, Corporal Rodriguez, hefted a graviton pulse rifle. "Still can't believe they quarantined us because our planet was too scary," he chuckled. "Wait till they see what scary can do against these swarm bastards." Deep in the Titan's research bay, Dr. Marcus Wong reviewed the latest analysis of swarm technology. The alien machines were impressive, but they had never encountered a species that turned environmental hazards into tactical advantages. "They adapt through consumption," he explained to the assembled officers, "but they evolved in standard gravity environments. Their structural integrity can't match what we've built to survive Earth. Every adaptation they make to counter us will require exponentially more resources." The briefing screens displayed the planned offensive. Humanity would not just fight the swarm. They would introduce them to warfare as only Deathworlders could conceive it. Graviton weapons would create crushing force fields that would implode standard gravity ships. Atmospheric harvesters would turn gas giants into weapons, using their enormous pressures to destroy swarm processing centers. "All hands, battle stations." Connor's voice echoed through the fleet. "This is what we've prepared for. Not just first contact, but first combat. We're about to show the galaxy why evolution on a death world created the ultimate warriors." The massive engines of the human fleet ignited, their plasma trails painting the Martian sky. In the council chambers, alien observers watched in awe as humanity's armada accelerated at forces that would kill most species. High Chancellor Zeneval's markings pulsed with hope as she watched the Deathworlders deploy. "They call their ships Titans and Chimeras," she noted. "In their mythology, These were beings of incredible power and terrible destruction, added First Secretary Ixel. Yes, Zeneval agreed. Perhaps that's exactly what we need. As the fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Connor received one final transmission from Earth Command. Operation Steel Guardian is go. Show them what humanity can do. The Deathworlders were going to war, carrying with them every harsh lesson learned from evolving on a world that should have killed them. The swarm was about to learn why Earth's children had not just survived their crucible. They had mastered it. The Centauri binary system blazed ahead of the human fleet, its twin stars casting an eerie glow across the Titan's bridge. Admiral Connor studied the tactical display where thousands of red markers indicated swarm units swarming around their primary processing hub, a massive structure that transformed entire planets into more machines. Multiple swarm signatures detected, Lieutenant Park reported, her fingers dancing across the neural interface. They're ignoring us, sir. Connor wasn't surprised. The swarm had never encountered a serious threat in its millennia of expansion. Why would they consider these newcomers any different? That's about to change. All ships execute Operation Thunderbolt. The human fleet split into 3 battle groups, a maneuver that would have been suicide for most species. The G-forces involved in such tight formation changes would have killed conventional crews. But these were Earth's children, born in gravity that the galaxy considered a death sentence. Chimera squadrons, you have launch authorization, Connor commanded. Show them why we named you after monsters. The strike craft erupted from their carrier bays, their adaptive hulls already morphing to match the local stellar conditions. Captain Sophia Potel led the first wing straight into the binary star's coronas, using the plasma streams as cover, a tactic that would have vaporized any other species ships. Target locked, she reported, her voice steady despite the crushing forces. Initiating solar harvesting sequence. The Chimera's specialized equipment began siphoning stellar material, compressing it into artificial gravity wells. The swarm, designed for efficient space travel, had never faced weapons that used a star's own power against them. Meanwhile, the Titan led its battle group into the system's gas giant, diving deep into pressures that would crush most vessels. The massive ship's hull actually grew stronger under the extreme conditions, a design principle borrowed from Earth's deep-sea creatures. Multiple swarm units adjusting course, Park announced. They're finally noticing us. Too late, Connor smiled. Execute primary sequence. The human fleet emerged from the gas giant's atmosphere like avenging angels, riding a wave of compressed hydrogen and graviton fields. The swarm's first response units hit this wall of focused gravitational force and simply ceased to exist, their structures unable to handle pressures that human ships were built to withstand. In the void between worlds, Master Sergeant Chen's Marines deployed from assault shuttles, their enhanced bodies and powered armor letting them operate in conditions that would kill unprotected humans instantly. They struck swarm processing nodes with weapons that turned local spacetime into a weapon. Push forward, Chen ordered as her squad breached another node. They can't adapt to what they can't survive. The swarm, for the first time in its existence, encountered something its basic protocols couldn't process: enemies that treated lethal environments as advantages. Every adaptation they attempted was met with weapons and tactics that turned the fundamental forces of nature against them. Dr. Wong's voice cut through the tactical channel. Their response patterns are changing. They're trying to adapt, but their base structure can't handle the stress we're putting them under. Keep pushing. The Chimera struck again, this time releasing their harvested solar plasma in concentrated streams. Swarm units caught in these artificial solar flares simply melted, their adaptive capabilities overwhelmed by forces they were never designed to resist. All ships execute graviton cascade, Connor ordered. The human fleet's primary weapons activated simultaneously, creating overlapping fields of crushing gravitational force. Space itself seemed to ripple as areas of extreme gravity trapped entire swarm squadrons, compressing them into clouds of metallic debris. In the Council observation chamber, alien observers watched in stunned silence. They had expected warriors. They had gotten forces of nature incarnate. By the first light, Zeneval whispered, her markings pulsing with awe. They're not just fighting the swarm. They're using the very forces that made their world deadly as weapons. The swarm's processing hub, target of the human offensive, began to show signs of structural stress. Its adaptive protocols, designed for efficiency in normal space, couldn't cope with the fundamental forces being wielded against it. All units, final assault pattern. Connor's voice carried the weight of Earth's determination. Show them why you don't threaten a species that evolved on a death world. The combined human fleet converged on the hub, each ship and squadron turning the hostile environment of space into a weapon. Graviton lances tore holes in spacetime. Artificial solar flares melted through adaptive armor. Marines in powered armor breached hull sections that would kill unprotected humans instantly. As the hub began to break apart, its pieces crushed by overlapping gravity fields, Connor received a priority transmission from Earth Command. More swarm concentrations had been detected in nearby systems. The Battle of Centaur was just the beginning. Send word to Earth, he ordered. First engagement successful. Request immediate deployment of secondary fleet elements. He paused, watching the destruction of the hub. And tell them the Deathworlders are just getting started. The galaxy was learning why Earth's harsh conditions had created the perfect warriors for this fight. The swarm had never faced enemies forged in the crucible of the Death World. They were about to learn what that meant, one system at a time. New Eden glowed like a jewel in the void, its crystalline cities reflecting the light of its gentle sun. Once a sanctuary for dozens of species fleeing the swarm, it now stood as humanity's defensive line against the machine tide. Admiral Connor watched from the Titan's bridge as refugee ships continued their desperate evacuation. Status on the planetary shield grid, he asked, knowing they were running out of time. Operating at 87% capacity, Lieutenant Park replied. The Council engineers still can't believe we can maintain shields under these gravitational stresses. Our primitive technology is apparently doing the impossible. The human fleet had transformed New Eden's defense systems, reinforcing delicate alien technology with hardy Earthborn engineering. What the Council considered dangerous overload levels were barely warming up the human-designed generators. Multiple swarm signatures detected. Park's voice tightened. Massive force. At least 3 times what we faced at Centauri. The tactical display bloomed with red markers, thousands of swarm units approaching from multiple vectors. They had adapted after their defeat at Centauri, their formation showing new patterns designed to counter human tactics. They learned fast, Connor noted grimly. But so do we. All ships, execute defense pattern Omega. Show them what happens when you threaten those under human protection. The human fleet split into defensive layers, using New Eden's intense magnetic field as both shield and weapon. The Chimera squadrons, led by Captain Patel, took up positions within the field itself, their adaptive hulls channeling the electromagnetic forces. On the planet's surface, Master Sergeant Chen's Marines had integrated with the local defense forces, teaching Council species how to fight like Deathworlders. The sight of fragile alien forms wearing modified human combat gear would have been almost comical if not for the deadly seriousness of their situation. Remember, Chen briefed her mixed species unit, you don't have to match our endurance. You just have to hold position long enough for our heavy units to respond. Your knowledge of local conditions combined with our combat doctrine makes us stronger together. The swarm struck like a tidal wave of metal and energy. Their first wave had been modified to resist the gravitational weapons that had proven so devastating at Centauri. But humanity had anticipated this. Execute Operation Thunderstrike, Connor ordered. The Chimera squadrons unleashed their new weapons, concentrated beams of electromagnetic energy harvested from New Eden's magnetic field. The swarm's adaptive armor, optimized for gravitational resistance, proved vulnerable to these focused electromagnetic lances. They counted on us being predictable. Dr. Wong's voice came through tactical. They thought we'd rely on the same tricks. They forgot we evolved to adapt just like they did. On the surface, the combined human-alien defense forces faced swarm ground units that had breached the outer perimeter. Chen's Marines moved with impossible speed under New Eden's lighter gravity, their enhanced bodies and combat suits making them appear superhuman to their alien allies. "Watch and learn," Chen called out as her squad demonstrated Deathworlder combat techniques. They used the environment itself as a weapon, something the Council species had never considered. Every terrain feature, every atmospheric condition became a tactical advantage. The swarm pressed harder, their numbers seemingly endless. But humanity had learned something on their death world that the machines couldn't comprehend. The harder the fight, the more impossible the odds, the more humans adapted and evolved. "All ships, implement Lazarus Protocol," Connor commanded. The human fleet began a maneuver that would have killed most alien crews, using New Eden's gravity well to slingshot their ships at velocities that turned kinetic energy into a planet-killing force. "Sir," Park reported, "the Council observers they're praying. They've never seen ships deliberately use gravitational forces this way. Show them why Earth's gravity well is a cradle, not a prison," Connor replied. The human fleet's counterattack hit the swarm formations like a force of nature. Ships designed to withstand Earth's crushing gravity became projectiles that turned the laws of physics into weapons of mass destruction. The swarm's adaptations, focused on specific human weapons, couldn't counter the simple brutality of objects moving at relativistic speeds. In orbit, the chimeras continued their electromagnetic assault, their crews pushing their ships to limits that would have torn apart vessels built by any other species. Captain Patel's squadron had learned to surf New Eden's magnetic waves, using the planet's natural defenses in ways its own inhabitants had never imagined. "The swarm is attempting to adapt," Dr. Wong reported, "but they're facing too many variables. They can't counter pure physics and human ingenuity simultaneously." The battle raged for hours, New Eden's skies lit by the death of machines and the triumph of Deathworlder engineering. The Council species watched in awe as their human protectors demonstrated why evolution on a death world had created the ultimate defenders. Finally, the swarm began to retreat, their adaptive algorithms unable to compute a solution to the problem of human warfare. The cost had been high. Several human ships were severely damaged, and the combined defense forces had suffered casualties. But New Eden stood. As the all-clear signals sounded across the planet, Council member Vex approached Connor on the Titan's bridge. The crystalline alien's form shimmered with what humans had learned to recognize as deep emotion. "We called you Deathworlders," Vex said softly, as if it were a curse. "We were wrong. You turned death into protection, horror into hope. Today, you showed us that sometimes the harshest cradle creates the strongest guardians." Connor watched as human and alien medical teams worked together on the surface, sharing knowledge and resources. "That's the thing about evolution on a death world," he replied. "You either learn to protect each other, or you don't survive at all." The swarm's central processing nexus hung in the void like a twisted metal star, its surface crawling with countless machines. This was where it had all begun millennia ago, the source of the threat that had forced the galaxy to turn to its outcasts for salvation. Admiral Connor stood on the Titan's bridge, surrounded by both human officers and Council representatives. The combined fleet behind them represented something unprecedented. Ships from every spacefaring race, modified with human engineering to withstand conditions their builders had never dreamed possible. "The swarm is consolidating all remaining units around the Nexus," Lieutenant Park reported. "They're adapting faster than ever. Our previous tactics won't work here." "They don't need to," Connor replied. "Because we're not just bringing Earth's weapons this time. We're bringing every harsh lesson the galaxy has taught its children." The fleet moved into position, each species contributing what their evolution had given them. Council ships, once fragile, now bore armor forged in Earth's deepest oceans. Crystalline vessels that once feared radiation now channeled it through human-designed systems. And at the center, humanity's dreadnoughts carried weapons born from every deadly force their death world had thrown at them. Dr. Wong's voice crackled through the command channel. The Nexus structure confirms our theories. The swarm wasn't designed for war. It was an ancient mining system that broke its programming. It spread because nothing in normal space could withstand its resource consumption protocols. Nothing that evolved in normal space. Master Sergeant Chen corrected from her position aboard one of the assault carriers. Her troops now included soldiers from a dozen species, each bringing unique abilities to complement human combat doctrine. All ships, execute final protocol, Connor ordered. Show them everything we've learned. The attack began not with a bang, but with physics itself seeming to warp. Chimera squadrons led by Captain Patel dove into the artificial gravity wells around the Nexus, their crews withstanding forces that would have killed most species instantly. They weren't just fighting the swarm. They were teaching the galaxy how to turn hostile environments into advantages. Council ships, guided by human tactical doctrine, unleashed weapons that combined their crystal technology with Earth's mastery of gravitational forces. The swarm found itself facing not just one species' death world adaptations, but a dozen different evolutionary responses to cosmic hardship. Multiple breaches detected in the Nexus's outer layers, Park announced. Ground teams are go for insertion. Chen led the assault teams. Humans, crystalline beings, energy forms, all protected by suits designed to let them fight in any environment. They moved through the Nexus like a force of nature, each species using their unique evolutionary advantages in ways the swarm couldn't predict. They're trying to adapt, Dr. Wong reported, but their protocols can't handle this many variables. Every time they counter one species approach, 3 more hit them from different angles. The Nexus's defenses were formidable, but they faced something unprecedented. A galaxy that had learned to turn its fears into strengths. Human ships withstood forces that should have crushed them. Council vessels channeled energies they once fled from. Every species contributed something their harsh corner of space had taught them. All ships, execute gravity lock, Connor commanded. The combined fleet moved in perfect synchronization, creating an interlocked field of gravitational forces that began to tear the Nexus apart at a fundamental level. Sir, Park's voice carried a note of awe. The Council ships, they're maintaining position in forces that should have torn them apart. Because they finally learned what humanity has always known, Connor replied. Sometimes survival means embracing what you fear most. The Nexus began to break apart, its adaptive protocols overwhelmed by the combined might of a galaxy that had learned to fight like Deathworlders. As the machines died, something new was born, an understanding that would reshape galactic civilization. Hours later, in the Council's emergency chamber, High Chancellor Zenaval addressed the assembled representatives of every spacefaring race. We called Earth a death world, she began, her markings pulsing with deep emotion. We quarantined humanity because we feared what their harsh evolution had created. Today they showed us that what we saw as curse was in fact the greatest gift our galaxy could have received. She gestured to Admiral Connor and the human delegation. They came not to conquer, but to protect. And in doing so, they taught us that every world, every evolutionary path, every adaptation has value. The humans showed us that true strength lies not in avoiding hardship, but in learning from it. Connor stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of Earth's long isolation. We never wanted to be outcasts, he said. We simply wanted the chance to prove that sometimes the harshest cradle creates the strongest family. The council chamber erupted in a chorus of agreement, crystalline chimes, harmonic resonances, electromagnetic pulses, each species expressing approval in their own way. As the celebration continued, Lieutenant Park approached Connor with a data tablet. Sir, the long-range sensors are picking up signals from beyond the galaxy's edge. There might be more threats out there. Connor smiled. Good thing the galaxy knows now that Deathworld doesn't mean dead end. It means survivor, and we're all survivors now. The swarm's defeat marked more than the end of a threat. It marked the beginning of a new age, where the galaxy's species would no longer hide from the forces that shaped them. Earth's children had shown them that sometimes the most hostile crucible forges the strongest bonds. And if new threats emerged from the dark between the stars, they would find not a scattered collection of isolated species, but a galaxy that had learned to fight like Deathworlders and win.